Today is the last opportunity to say a final farewell to Pope Francis before the funeral. And early Friday morning, 199 Venezuelan migrants arrived in Caracas as part of the humanitarian plan back to the homeland. Russian President Vladimir Putin met in the Kremlin on Friday with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to discuss a potential ceasefire deal with Ukraine. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. This Friday will be the last opportunity to say a final farewell to the Supreme Pontiff in St. Peter's Basilica before the funeral that will take place on Saturday. This last day of the wake will be more reduced in view of the funeral of the following day. Between Wednesday and Thursday, more than 100,000 faithful came to bid farewell to the Argentinian, which caused the schedule of the first 2 days to be extended to the early hours of the morning. The doors of the Basilica were only closed for a few hours during the night for cleaning tasks. The funeral will take place on Saturday starting at 10 a.m. and 500,000 people are expected to attend. And up to 50 heads of states and 10 monarchs will attend the funeral of Pope Francis. This as part of the 130 official delegations that have confirmed their attendance to the funeral mass in the Vatican City. Among the heads of state attending the funeral are the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and his Argentine and French counterparts, Javier Milei and Emmanuel Macron. The Brazilian head of state, Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, will also attend, as well as the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and the President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola. The funeral liturgy will be presided over by Cardinal Giovanni Battista, after which the coffin will be transferred to the Basilica of Santa Maria la Mayor for burial. And in the United States, a federal judge ordered the return of a second migrant deported by President Donald Trump's administration to the mega prison in El Salvador. Magistrate Stephanie Gallagher ruled that the U.S. government made a mistake with the deportation of Christian, a 20-year-old Venezuelan, and ordered the administration to facilitate his return. This is the second time the U.S. justice system has ordered the government to bring back migrants sent to El Salvador's confinement center without due process, the first being Salvadoran Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who had a court order protecting him from deportation and has been transferred from Secot to another prison in the country. And on Thursday, 24th, a group of 82 migrants deported from the United States arrived in Cuba. The Cuban Ministry of the Interior detailed that of the 82 deportees, 74 were men and 8 were women. He highlighted that the return took place within the framework of bilateral migratory agreements. The ministry also stated that with this arrival, there are already 15 returns from different countries of the region in 2025, and that among all the groups of migrants returned, there are already 4,050 people so far this year. In this regard, the statement reiterated that Cuba remains firmly committed to regular, safe, and orderly migration, while highlighting the danger and the conditions of risk to life posed by illegal departures from the country. And early Friday morning, 199 Venezuelan migrants arrived in Caracas as part of the humanitarian plan back to the homeland. The flight was comprised of 171 men, 19 women, and 9 children. This is the second flight of the week to return Venezuelans home. On Thursday, another flight carrying 316 Venezuelans arrived from Mexico. The Venezuelan government emphasized that this initiative is unique in its kind, aimed at supporting and protecting the victims of the U.S. economic blockade. In this regard, the Venezuelan Minister of Interior, Diosdado Cabello, denounced that a Venezuelan woman reported the kidnapping of her son, a 2-year-old child, who was not allowed to board the flight. And also in Venezuela, the massive training plan in popular planning of community spokespeople for the execution of projects approved in the consultations is being strengthened. A video conference was held where the communes received the inductions for their formation as part of the policies for the strengthening of the National Development Plan known as the 7 Transformations, and in view of the 4th popular consultation on April 27th. Should be noted that 1,199 eco-socialist councils have been formed in the communal government halls, an important number in the progress of the first vertex of the great mission Mother Earth Venezuela. And China rejects U.S. attempts to pressure Latin American and Caribbean countries to reduce trade with the Asian giant. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Guo Jiankun said that trying to divide nations into opposing blocs goes against historical trends and global development. This after President Donald Trump suggested to Latin American and Caribbean countries to follow Panama's initiative to cancel their participation in the Belt and Road, and even suggested choosing between Washington and Beijing. In this sense, the Chinese spokesman emphasized that Beijing always promotes cooperation between nations based on mutual respect, equality, shared benefits, openness, inclusion, and win-win cooperation. We now have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Ecuador was the scene of a series of seismic events that set off alarms among the population on Friday. Precisely, the first earthquake movement was recorded at 2:36 a.m. with a magnitude of 4.2 and an epicenter located in the Pacific Ocean, approximately 404 kilometers from Galera in the province of Esmeraldas. In addition, at 6:44 a.m. local time, a new magnitude 6.3 earthquake shook the coastal region of the nation with an epicenter located 17 kilometers from Esmeraldas. So far, only material losses have been reported as citizens informed of structural damages to buildings and partial collapses, but monitoring is being maintained for possible aftershocks or additional effects. And the rain emergency in Ecuador was extended this Thursday from 8 to 12 of the country's 24 provinces after registering 44 deaths. In this regard, more than 51,000 have been injured and 172,000 people have been affected since the beginning of the year. As a result, the emergency declaration was extended for 60 more days in the 8 provinces that were already under this measure, and the Andean provinces of Bolívar, Cotopaxi, Chimborazo, and Pichincha were added. The National Secretariat of Risk Management of the Ecuadorian government argued the decision to extend the emergency to more provinces in order to channel resources with greater agility to optimize the attention to citizens. And Ecuador's National Electoral Council rejected Thursday the recount of presidential votes demanded by the Citizens' Revolution Reto Alliance. The electoral authorities' ruling declared without substance the claim presented by the left coalition and maintained incumbent President Noboa as the winner of the elections. However, the head of the Electoral Council, Diana Tamán, said that all political organizations still have the right to file appeals either to the Council or to the Electoral Contentious Tribunal. On the other hand, the attorney for the Citizens' Revolution Reto Alliance, Francisco Estarellas, questioned the electoral body's ruling and affirmed that the alliance will go to all the corresponding instances to continue with their claim. And archaeologists in Peru have uncovered an ancient fishing site of the Caral civilization at the archaeological complex of El Áspero, north of Lima. The results were presented by the director of the Caral archaeological site, Ruth Shari, as part of the 20th anniversary of the foundation of El Áspero excavation area. Archaeologists consider the burial site as an exceptional finding due to the preservation of skin, hair, and nails of the remains of a woman who is believed to have had 20 to 35 years of age at the moment of death. The Caral flourished nearly 5,000 years ago and were mainly dedicated to fishing and commerce with Amazonic and Indian populations.
We are trying to make this celebration of 20 years of works. When we first arrived at Áspero, it had already been intervened by some foreign colleagues. but there was not yet a vision of recovery of the integral history for the benefit of society.
Russian President Vladimir Putin met in the Kremlin on Friday with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to discuss a potential ceasefire deal with Ukraine. The reunion was the second meeting between the head of state and Witkoff in the last 2 weeks, and their fourth one this year. The last one took place in St. Petersburg on April 11, lasting more than 4 hours. In this regard, Kremlin Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov explained that the negotiations are many-sided since the subject is very complex. The government official highlighted how useful the talks have been and noted that they were a reliable channel for communicating positions between President Putin and his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump. In this regard, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that Moscow, with U.S. mediation, is ready for an agreement on Ukraine, but with some details need to be finalized. For the time being, Moscow and Washington are actively cooperating to resolve the Ukrainian crisis, while Kiev insists on its own conditions and does not want to make concessions. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, said on Thursday that Ukraine wants to reach peace with Russia by force and called on the U.S. to use its power and influence to put pressure on Moscow. Russia and the U.S. established contact in Riyadh on February 18th after U.S. President Donald Trump's inauguration. Another round of talks took place in Istanbul on February 27th and then met again in Istanbul on April 10th. And in Russia, an attack claimed the life of the deputy chief of the main directorate of the Armed Forces General Staff, Yaroslav Moskalik, after a vehicle explosion in the city of Balashia, Moscow province. The country's investigative committee reported that the incident occurred on Friday in the parking lot of a residential building. The explosive device used in the attack contained more than 300 grams of TNT. Investigators, criminalists, and specialists of the department and operational units of the security forces were present at the scene. We now are going to have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. We're going to be right back after this break. Welcome back. The United Nations Organization for Palestine Refugees denounces almost 500,000 Palestinians forcibly displaced since the resumption of the Israeli genocide against Gaza. The international organization warned that refugee camps report overcrowding in unstable living conditions due to the lack of supply of basic services. The agency also indicated that the humanitarian crisis in the enclave is at its worst since October 2023, describing shelters as insecure and barely habitable. The Zionist blockade on the border is causing a rapid depletion of essential humanitarian supplies such as food, medicine, and fuel. In Palestine, the Al-Durra Children's Hospital was severely damaged following the recent Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip, resulting in the suspension of its operations. The bombing damaged the intensive care unit and alternative energy systems, rendering the medical center out of service. This closure brings to 37 the number of hospitals out of service since the beginning of the offensive on October 7, 2023. The Palestinian Civil Defense reported the rescue of several wounded and stressed that many people remain trapped under the rubble of the Mohammed al-Durra Children's Hospital. On the other hand, in the south, Israeli forces demolished several houses in Rafah, and the Han Yunis and Al-Maghazi refugee camps were also attacked. And in Sudan, several units linked to the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces prevented the remaining inhabitants of the Samsam displaced camp from leaving after occupying it last week. According to a statement issued by the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, the fighting has caused nearly 400,000 people sheltering in Samsam to be evicted. Violent clashes between the Sudan Armed Forces and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces have escalated dramatically in northern Darfur state, with Al-Fasher and Samsam IDP camp as the epicenter. Between the 10th and 22nd of April, the surrounding area of Al-Fasher and Samsam suffered constant artillery shelling, drone and ground attacks, resulting in the death of hundreds of civilians. And on Friday, a small police plane crashed into the sea near a popular beach town in Thailand, killing 5 people on board. The plane was being used for a weather reconnaissance mission prior to a parachute training exercise and crashed in the area between Cham and Huan Hin districts, approximately 100 meters from the shore. It crashed around 8 a.m. local time, according to the Royal Thai Police spokesperson. There were 6 people on board, all police officers. 1 remains in the hospital in critical condition but alive. The cause of the crash is not yet known. And on the occasion of World Book Day, several countries carried out various activities to encourage more reading among the population. Among those countries was Chile, where each person was given a book by Pablo Neruda free of charge. Let's see more about this action.
Free Books is the name of the initiative carried out every year by the University of Chile for World Book Day, whose objective is to distribute various texts to students, neighbors, and passersby in the capital and other localities. On this occasion, the selected work was 20 love poems and a desperate song by Pablo Neruda, winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature, which will celebrate its 101st publication anniversary this coming June. This activity was carried out in coordination with the Ministry of Culture, Arts and Heritage and the Pablo Neruda Foundation.
It is also the possibility of a reflective encounter with each one of us with our own thoughts. Then we believe that to have a critical society that knows how to listen to the other, that knows how to dialogue, we need to be a community capable of rediscovering books, and that is why we do this. In order to invite our neighbors in Santiago to get in touch with the book.
15,000 copies were co-published for this activity and were handed out simultaneously at the Central University House and in Neruda's Museum House in other cities. The idea is to make young people feel more attracted to books in a current context in which social networks and digital reading has been displacing the physical works.
I found this activity very incredible. In fact, I went because this book was the first one I was given when I won a poetry contest, when I was in elementary school. So it is very nice to have it in my hands again, even if it is like this. It is very nice.
It is a good activity to attract people to read, and that they can read more in a way that is free, so they can see if they like the author's book, for example, and they can buy it if they like it.
During the development of the Free Books initiative, there was also an incentive to follow the works of other Chilean writers. On the occasion of the upcoming celebration of the 80th anniversary of the Nobel Prize of Literature awarded to the poet Gabriela Mistral, who was the first Ibero-American woman and the second person from a region to receive this distinction.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.